it's gonna be going back from federal court to state court. Okay? It's still pending, mediation didn't take.
Understand that. And see, that's the kind of thing that I think we're entitled to know. I'm not wanting to know anything that,
I'm not disagreeing,
Yeah,
okay,
I'm
just
not-
answering.
yeah.
The other matter was, it says pending, for other threatened litigation, and the answer is, there's some rumblings, but there's no other litigation, okay?
I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Okay, so item 3C, consideration and action on the report by city engineer and city manager concerning the sewer treatment plant capacity for the city and the sewer shed watershed that is the subject of the proposed Pecan Springs RV park. Andy, Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. At the regular council meeting, April 11, 2013, a directive was given to the city manager by Councilman Miller, who made the motion. The entire council voted, of course, to direct the city manager to initiate a water and wastewater model of city and service systems and prioritize the review to respond to the sewer shed, watershed that is subject of the Pecan Springs RV Park, and make a report on what's developed and is being managed at the May 9, 2013 meeting. Seconded by Councilman Castillo. Motion carried 4-0-1. And Monday morning, I enlisted the help of Andy Baventes, and he's sitting in the audience. He's our wastewater treatment, one of the wastewater treatment operators, and city engineer Larry Heimer to assist me in bringing the best information possible on your request. So Mr. Heimer has been instrumental, and I'll let Andy speak on the work that he and other city staff have been doing to accomplish what we need to. We do have a proposal from Mr. Heimer with cost estimates of what that would take to accomplish everything else. So,
Just a quick question. I'm new, and I'm just curious as to what are your credentials for, to speak on behalf of the water and sewer?
Well, I've been a professional engineer for about 33 years, doing this kind of work.
In civil or?
I'm a civil engineer, professional engineer, and I primarily work in both the public sector, primarily public sector projects, water, wastewater projects. We also do, another part of our business San Antonio does land development type projects, HEBs and commercial projects like that, and subdivisions. But my primary expertise for the last 35 plus years is on street and drainage, water and wastewater type projects. And I can provide you a resume if you're interested in seeing that. But,
No, I was just curious.
but I've been,
I'm new.
I think I've kind of been acting as the city engineer since I lived here in Floresville. I guess back in the early 90s, late 80s, I moved here. I was born and raised in Floresville, so I moved back after got out of college in the Army, and our kids went to high school here. And so while I was here in Floresville, I was asked to attend some of the city council meetings by the manager at that time because I was here. And so ever since that time, I've been involved off and on with a lot of city system issues related to water and wastewater. So I've got some knowledge about your system just because I'm over 60 years old now.
Okay, appreciate it.
All right. Well, after Andy called about the study that was requested, the big issue that we've had in Floresville is that we haven't had accurate water and wastewater system maps. The last, in my opinion, the last most accurate maps that were done were back in like 1970 by an engineer called Howard Gaddis. And at that time, there was some system maps done that basically, it's hard to tell, but this is the city of Floresville. Here's 181 in the business loop, and 97 going towards Stockdale, and 97 going toward Pleasanton. But the area in yellow is basically the grids that contain the water and wastewater maps as of about 1972. And I found that to be the most accurate information available. There's been other updates done since that time, but those maps weren't very accurate in my opinion. So basically what the city has is paper maps that are pretty old and yellow that kind of cover this area in yellow. And with the city's growth, there's a lot more area now. And so there's a much larger area to look at and prepare maps that describe your systems that have been built and added to over these years. And so, but the biggest challenge in doing any kind of analysis of capacity is to have an accurate map of your system. And that's been lacking in Floresville for many years. And so the very first part of our work to do a sewer capacity analysis related to this issue that came up a few weeks back was to update the maps. And that's what I'm doing now. First thing we did, we kind of took the mapping numbering system and we kept that in place and changed that, and we just added the similar sized grids for the entire city. And so we went from a total of 19 maps back in 1970 to a total of 49 maps or 48 maps now that will contain all of the city system. And a lot of these are blank now because there's no information on what's out there. We know there's a water line out there, we know there's a sewer line out there, but we don't know for sure what size it is or where it runs. So that's the big challenge of doing any kind of analysis of your city, whether it's, your sewer capacity, doing models, water capacity, doing water models. The very first thing to do is to get your maps updated. And so that's the first part of what we're doing right now. We created this grid map using GIS and available information from the appraisal district. We created, these maps are larger scale maps that describe by address all the parcels in the city of Floresville. So we have a very good base to start with. And now we're taking information that we have from these old maps and information that Andrew and his staff is helping with, and we're focusing in on trying to gather information on manholes, sewer line depths and sizes of lines. And so he's working with us on that at this point in time, using his folks to help pull that information together. What we're doing right now, though, is, again, we've created this base. This is our starting point. We're working, though, primarily in the kind of the northern half of the city right now for this first stage or first part of our analysis. This next map kind of shows some information here, but the blue area was kind of what was identified as the CCM, that's PCQ's information related to water and wastewater service. That's basically the old city limits back probably in 1970, but 75. And but I just kind of show that for reference. But the area that we're looking at right now, this is the RV park that kind of raised this issue a month or so ago. We met about this, and this RV park and the area around it drains through a system of 10-inch lines down, 15-inch lines down to the sewer plant in this area. But basically the area in red has lines coming off of this kind of main trunk line that feed into it, that goes into the plant. And so at this time, we're focusing on the area kind of in red as kind of the part one of our sewer capacity analysis, or our model analysis. And this is where we've taken all the information that we have relating to where lines are located and been given this information, these larger scale maps, to Andrew and his staff, but he is working to line manholes and doing measure downstream how deep they are and verify what size the lines are in this area. And then what we're going to do is, working with him, besides coordinating how we're going to do this and having a clear plan and direction how we're going to do this, what's most important, we're going to then also have our survey crews come in and shoot elevations of those manholes to make sure we know exactly what the pipe slopes are, because the pipe slope is what defines capacity. If it's an 8-inch line that's laid very flat, has maybe a capacity of 400 EDUs, but if it's laid at a little steeper slope, obviously, it could be 800 EDUs. So the slope of the sewer line is very important to calculate capacity. So right now, this first phase of our work in preparing these maps and verifying what's in the ground and shooting elevations and then taking the information and actually entering it into this digital map, where it'd be a digital record of what the city has as far as the wastewater system. We're doing all that now, or getting ready to do that work with your authorization to proceed and get that done. To create a existing sewer system map that covers this entire north half of the city, which basically is Highway 97 out toward Stockdale and Standish Street on down to about where the plant is. And this is the area that we're going to start first, or proposing to start first with our system. And so the first part of that, we've identified our costs related to that, the elevations, doing the analysis, doing the mapping, adding the digital information, or putting that field verified information onto the maps, and then running the models to define capacity. We're going to, first of all, after we get the system maps done and verified, where we know what each line segment capacity is, then we're going to plug in the information related to the sewer flow being generated by the customers you serve now, and determine what the capacity is, and if there are any bottlenecks or issues of your line in this segment of the city. And that'll determine, it'll tell us, right now, the question that came up with this issue with the RV park, is there capacity there? And at that time, as you recall, what we could do was look at just the area around the RV park and not do much more than that. We could just look at the line sizes that were, within maybe 500 feet or so from this point to determine, is there capacity? We weren't able to look at the entire reach all the way down to the plant, which we're going to be able to do now to complete this work. We'll have the system map updated, all this in a digital format that can be used from this point forward. At some point, the city will probably want to look at getting a system, a computer system that allows Andrew to create and edit and update these digital maps once we get them all established. It's not that expensive. The GIS software is probably about $2,500. That's probably the most costly item there. The computer can be probably a normal computer, $1,000 computer can run this. And then there's some training involved. So, your staff to be able to know how to use GIS, but that's probably a $4,000 or $5,000 total budget item to have your staff be able to then, once we get these maps set up, to maintain them and update them and be able to check capacity. If someone comes in for a capacity or for a service request somewhere in the city, Andrew would be able to take this model we have and plug in that area and determine, is there a capacity issue? I think that's what y'all were trying to get us to do in this analysis. So that's the track we're on right now, but our analysis after we get the model set up is to see what the system is, what the capacity is now with what you're serving right now. And you're serving areas within the city and outside the city right now. This area, there's a subdivision up here kind of at the east side of the city, just on the north side of Old Sullivan Springs Road that you're serving, that's outside of your service area. There are some other areas too that are just outside in some areas, but we're gonna look at it, what your system capacity is and how it can handle what you're serving right now. And that may determine there may be some bottlenecks already that exist somewhere, but we'll identify that. The second part of that model will probably add in the undeveloped areas within your city limits and plug in some value for the flow that area is going to generate once it develops, and look at that and see kind of what that will do to your system. And then the third or fourth options, again, once you have the model established, you can run options and different scenarios pretty easily. And so, at that time we could look and see if we wanted to look at other areas outside of your city limits and what it would take to serve those. And again, the wastewater master plan normally is designed around watersheds. The watershed we're working in on this northern section of the city is the Lodi Branch watershed and the Seguin Branch watershed. Lodi kind of comes up here near Sullivan Springs Road and comes back toward 97, and then the Seguin Branch is out there between the city and Walmart. So those are kind of the two watersheds that would ultimately at some point in the future, as growth continues, the system that you have here will have to have the capacity to serve that if you all decide to serve properties further out north of the city or northeast of the city. So anyway, the model is, once the model is established, that's probably 80% of the work or 90% of the work, and the rest of it is relatively inexpensive. Once the model is created, you can run scenarios pretty easily and report where your capacity problems are. So that's the plan right now for this current question mark about the capacity for the RV park. And that's just the wastewater side. On the water side, that was a question that came up. What about water capacity? doing a water model is gonna be much more complicated. And we're not proposing to do anything at this point in time right now, because this map kind of shows, I've kind of tried to summarize all the water supply corporations that surround the city, which are these light blue areas. And so those areas are all committed to be served by those water supply corporations at some point, whenever, if they can. The area in white between the city and these adjoining water supply corporations is an area that's available to serve, if y'all decide to serve it. If it's something that y'all want to do in the future, y'all could extend your CCN out to cover either your existing city limits or actually go out to where these lines are, if you wanted to do that, to be able to plan for serving this area in white outside your city. But your existing,
Outside of the red is it's not within the CCN, or it's, some of it's still in the CCN,
what the red area?
the red area.
Well, again, right now, you've got two service levels in your city. You have this service level 1, which is at a little lower pressure. That's kind of, is the old pressure plane of your city when it was originally built. And the pressures in this area are probably 25 or 30 PSI lower than they are in this area. This area was created when you built the B Street well and the elevated tank at B Street. When we did that, we were able to raise the pressure up to be able to provide adequate service to the high school and the adjacent area, because this was high ground. And the lower pressure area was not able to provide adequate water up in this area. And so that was the purpose of doing the B Street well and the ground storage tank, and the elevated tank and the ground storage tank that's up in that area. But this area is a higher pressure level. There are valves that are closed that disconnect these two systems from each other, except for one location right now. There's a pressure reducing valve there at 181 where the old school admin building used to be, that was recently installed by the city, that allows flow back and forth between the lower and higher pressure planes based on demand in that particular area. There's also a second PRV that's being planned, and we have plans prepared for that. We just have not done that work, and that's on Sutherland Springs Road, to put another PRV at that location to kind of provide an automatic connection between the two pressure levels, so that if there's a big demand, a fire in the middle of the night, they automatically open up and allow flow to go wherever it's needed. So,
Creating a loop feed,
pardon me?
creating a loop feed.
Yeah, right now, that's why it's almost impossible to pick out a small area and try to do any kind of water analysis by itself. Because water flows back and forth through a wide variety of different pipes throughout the city. Some are looped, some are not looped. In order to analyze capacity, we really need to create a model for the entire system that allows you to determine what your system capacity is right now. Right now, you have a very large grid of pipes that are 6, 4, 3-inch size all throughout the city, and they're all connected together. And so it's the water model has to show all those different pipes. We probably would not go below a 3-inch pipe. We wouldn't try to model anything smaller than that, but the water model, to be able to determine capacity in the city, has to probably include the entire system. And then within that model, we would identify the service level 1 and 2 and show how the PRVs operate during different demand periods. So we aren't proposing to do the water model now, because this is a much more involved process. But what we are doing right now is we are setting up these system maps, as we spoke about earlier, as mentioned earlier. These grids are going to be, we're going to add information into those maps for both water and sewer.
So let me stop you.
Sure.
At this point, Mr. Hines. The tasking was, to create the water and sewer models primarily.
Right.
Okay, and I understand that in order to do a good water model, we have to do the other thing, but I'm gonna come back to what you stated earlier. The very, very first step is knowing what the hell we have.
Yes.
Okay, so if we are at this point, and you just said that while you're doing this surveying and entering it into the GIS, are we doing not only are our sewer lines, are we also putting in the water line information in there?
Right now, we're just identifying manholes and sewer lines, but the grid, the map has been set up to allow us, and that's the,
Well, my point is, if we're gonna spend the money now to go out and find all these sewer lines and measure all these sewer lines and shoot the grades on all these manholes for this area of town, the phase one as you have done it, I would think it would be more cost effective to be doing not only the mapping of our sewer lines, but concurrently doing the mapping of our water lines, so that as we go to the phase two of this, because the water model is equally as important in this city as is the sewer model. Because, you know, as we've discussed and as was identified in the, master plan, by M&S Engineering, obviously the GIS mapping was a recommendation of M&S Engineering. The water model was a recommendation of M&S Engineering, and the sewer model as well. We can't alienate the water model to say, okay, yeah, we're gonna do the water model after we do the sewer model. If we're gonna be putting boots on the ground looking where the sewer lines are, we might as well be documenting and entering into that GIS system the water line informations at the same time. I think that would be,
Yeah. This is one thing that, Andrew, can you come up here?
Yes,
Come to the
can you
front,
put the
please?
first grid?
This is the reason that I asked Andrew to be involved in this, because he's gonna tell you how time consuming and difficult it is. So, as long as the council understands the time and the manpower and what the work entails, then we can move forward.
Okay, let me first iterate. We don't have the biggest resources around. I have to use what we got. And I may be able to use some resources for 3 hours, and something comes up. A leak comes up, something happens, they gotta go, and they gotta take care of that. I'm trying to prioritize the best that I can with the resources that I have. And right now, this grid 20, 21, 24, 23, 27, 28 did not exist. I went ahead and found the collection lines, the manholes. I did find some water lines. From right here, I found a line, a 6-inch line that had been buried there since 1970, coming right there to the Flores property, coming down, coming all the way out to Country Road 329. I have found that. But this is what's taking me the time. We are kind of looking for a needle in a haystack. If I find a manhole here, and I find one 800 feet away, I gotta measure and hope that whoever did that, put them every 400 feet. Well, if they're not, some are at 350 feet, some are 302 feet, some are at 500 feet. So it's very hard to try to get something that does not exist and make it exist, so we can put it into the model. We want accurate information. We want the latest that we have in order to build the model, and for it to be corrected. So when the model is built, the wastewater, then we have the capacity to determine, is this line adequate enough if this or this or this comes in? Yes or no? If it's not, then we gotta make a decision. Just using an example of 6-inch line. 4 businesses go in there, it pops, and it tells me you're not gonna handle all that water. So what do we have to do? We gotta go to an 8, 10, 12-inch line? The thing, Councilman, what I'm trying to iterate here is in order for us to make a good analysis for both the water and the wastewater, we gotta have accurate information. And it's gonna take a little bit of time because of, though, if you don't mind passing that around, Jim, so they can understand what about this.
and I don't think this council is unsympathetic to
No,
the
I-
challenges you face. And I think this council wants the exact same thing you want. And my point in my question, okay, was looking at this proposal and this cost,
I would like to, be it a cooperative effort between city staff and the engineers. At the very least, this proposal needs to reflect not only the collection of the sewer model, it needs to support the collection of the data of what water we have, so we don't have to come back and re-go down the same road again for just the water models, okay? And that's what we need to be looking at, and
Well,
you're,
if I interrupt for a minute, I have found the water lines right here. I found the water lines coming over here. At the same time, I'm looking for the collection system. But it's taking too much time for me to meet what I call the critical path. I have to move on and keep on doing what I can do. And then-
and that's just my point, okay, is what is it gonna cost us to do this? I don't wanna do this half-assed.
Sure.
I don't wanna go down the road for $50,000, then we're gonna have to go down that exact same damn road again to get the water information. I would rather spend $75,000 and go down that road once. And that's just my point, is what is it gonna cost to do that? And you said, okay, hey, for the sewer model, this is the phase 1, phase 2. Okay, let's collect the water data at the same time. We may not be able to collect all of it, but let's identify that major portion that we can, so that we are not going over the same piece of real estate twice collecting data.
And I'm doing that.
Okay.
I am doing that.
I think we are taking care of it. We've created this overall plan now that we've worked with Andrew and staff. We have this system set up. These maps are all available now. We can print them out inch to 100 scale. They're easy to annotate information on, and so right now, as information becomes available, like this line you mentioned out here on 97 that went across to Old Silver Springs Road, you have that information now. That's simply just to draw it in and show it on these base maps, which we've provided now for the city. So we can get that happening now. I think-
And into the GIS.
Yes, and then the next step, putting on the GIS, but I think the main focus that we were, I guess the reason we did what we did is we were trying to get you an answer related to this wastewater issue within a reasonable amount of time, within, say, 3 months. If we started spending a lot of time on trying to do everything else, it could go on for a year, is my concern, because it takes a long time to do all this. But certainly, as Andrew locates a water line, like you said, if he annotates that on these maps that we've provided, we can then, it's easy to enter the information into the system. It's pretty easy to enter it in, so that's not a big challenge to us.
I am less concerned about a 90-day timeframe,
Right.
okay, as I am a complete water and sewer model, okay? And I realize that the city does not have the resources today for a complete water and sewer model, okay? So we can hit phase 1 of a wastewater model in your proposal, okay? Can we? And if it takes 2 more months, or if it takes a year more, let's get that other piece of the pie in here, so we're not having to go down there. We may not be creating a water model, but at the same time we are putting our wastewater lines into this GIS, we should be putting our water lines into the GIS, so that we can, when we do the phase 2 of this, not only do we have the information for our wastewater model, we now have the information that we need to go down the road with the water model. And if that means breaking the water piece up, breaking this into a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, I'm okay with that. But I am not comfortable in having to, well, write it down and then we're gonna have to go back and re-enter. If we're going and measuring it, and we're annotating it on maps, and we're entering it into the GIS system, let's do it for both, the water and the sewer.
That's what I'm doing here. If we go right here, we start back here on the 2-inch line. It connects right here to a 4-inch line, and then it goes completely all the way out from 329 into in front of Alternative Drive, past the Pecan RV. There's a 6-inch, and it jumps to an 8. When it hits Country Road 301, 10-inch. So, and that's the that's, now on the water side, it's a 4 and a 6, coming all the way down.
And my point is not that you're not doing.
No,
your job.
coming from Country Road 329, coming down this way. I set the collection first, and the water is a 6-inch line. Coming, and it turns right here, 6-inch to Mockingbird Lane, all the way out to Country Road 302, to this very end right here. I already have all that information on the water. Coming down all the way to 181, US Highway 181, I have the water and the collection, part of it.
And maybe I'm not questioning that you're not collecting the data, and I'm sure that you are. What I'm questioning is the contract piece of this, because the direction was water and sewer models. Now, maybe the better option, or maybe, based on what your presentation, Mr. Hyman, is it may be more cost effective for us to invest in the software and the training and be able to do some of this GIS entry, and that may reduce some of your costs, and we're getting a bigger bang for our buck in this one. And at the same time, we're collecting the sewer data and entering the sewer data, we're also entering in the water line data. I'm just saying that this proposal is great. We're going forward, but it doesn't answer the mail, and I'm concerned more that we're gonna be going down a road and collecting data, that we're gonna have to go back down that road and recollect the data and re-enter it into, so that we can have the water line.
Well, one of the questions that, and I gave you the proposal tonight, Mr. Heimer, I was on him, I need it, he did send it to me on Monday, but just what you said, I gave it to this man, and I said, look over this proposal and tell me what we can cut or what we can change, and as of today, I think that you all corresponded finally on the questions that Andy had come up with a bunch of questions and said, we need, you know, can we cut here, can we cut that, why are you charging us for this? He did his analysis of that proposal, sent it to Mr. Heimer, and he did, I guess, answer your questions in regards to that, but you brought the idea of the technology that would assist you to just continue on that.
You know, if we're talking about a $4,000 or $5,000 investment, okay, that's gonna ease your work, ease our costs in the surveying of this and the data entry piece of it. You know, and we can get closer to a full water model, closer to a full wastewater model. I support that. I am not comfortable in just issuing a contract that says wastewater model, okay? Because you said the same concerns I have. The same concerns that exist over wastewater exist over water supply. And we need to be able to answer the question. If we're gonna be putting in wastewater, we're gonna be putting in water. And we need to be able to answer those questions too. Do we have the capacity there?
Well, you know, on the, I guess I should clarify, the wastewater model, that's one cost. You know, there's a GIS, and the wastewater model is basically just a big spreadsheet where you identify by line segment, because based on the slope and diameter of the pipe, what its capacity is. And so you just create a big spreadsheet that Andrew could pull up on his computer and look at and very easily work with. The water model requires some, you know, fairly expensive software, $20,000 worth of software we have on several different programs we have to run these dynamic models, because you have water flowing in different directions under different conditions.
I understand that, Mr. Heimer, but my point in this is the key to it.
Sure.
Okay, is having the maps.
Right, and I think we did that we got with Andrew several weeks back and created this overall grid pattern that kind of matched to what you had now, so there wouldn't be confusion on these existing maps. And so we have the base, we have all the digital information. Andrew has that information, a lot of addresses, streets, and so it's going to be, you know, as we go through and start picking up information in the field, it's really easy to update that map and just draw it in there.
Well, then let's include that in the contract.
But the big question though, there is a difference though, of going out there and just locating and pumping a manhole in every 400 feet or 500 feet versus looking for the water main that has valves, fire hydrants, has probably 20 services. It has so much more information that he's gonna spend a lot more time trying to locate their information, so it'll just take a lot longer. And
We just
I'm
went through,
comfortable with it.
we just got one proposal, or was, is this something that needs to go out for bids?
He's our
Or-
city engineer, he's got the master contract with the
I
city.
think from a standpoint, just from clarification, if professional engineers, because of state law, are not allowed to bid on a public type project like this, and so if you were to go out to bid, we have to decline and pull our stuff back, and otherwise we lose our license. Basically, it's a qualification-based selection process. You can certainly go out for a statement of qualifications, invite firms to submit and provide their qualifications to you, and then make a selection based on qualifications, and then go through a process of defining the scope and the fee and negotiating a fee. And then try to negotiate a fee there. If you can't there, then you go to the next firm that you thought was second best. So that's how that process works.
I understand how the bidding process works, I've gone through it several
It's
times.
just not a bid process. If it's a bid process, we have to
It's
decline the
different,
work.
yeah, and it's professional, just like our attorney. You know, you get them on qualifications. After you pick one, then the fees are incurred like that. That's why he's been the city engineer, he's a city attorney, and we work on work orders like that.
But hired on as project-to-project basis.
Yes, with the work orders like that, yes.
And one of the things, Eric, is, he's been working with the city for a long time,
Oh, I understand,
so
I mean,
he
there's
understands the
there's the
process,
familiarity, you know, that the,
which another new engineering firm would have no idea.
but they, you know, what, my point is that you can get in another,
Oh, yes.
you can get in another firm that do it in the day in, day out basis, you know, starting from scratch and, you know, and utilizing their crews, their manpowers, and y'all can still, take care of y'all's normal daily duties, you know, without having to be start and stop and, you know.
But one thing,
I'm gonna,
one thing is, we don't have all the data.
Correct.
That engineering crew that would come in here would ask us, the city of Floresville, where's this?
Yes,
Wait a minute.
There's gonna be
I
a
gotta go
certain
look
amount of
for it.
work in it.
yeah.
Andy, I'm gonna
So
make
that's,
the motion to table this till the next meeting, okay? So that I'm certain that we can work out, you can look at the GIS software training piece of this, or altering the contract and the timelines. I'm uncomfortable with this without identifying collecting the water.
So are we gonna stop all work?
No, I'm not saying stop, I'm saying table the approval of this contract. You have the direction, I believe, to go forward with. This was a council directive on a water and sewer model to put it in phases based upon priorities, but as far as approving this contract, I'm not comfortable with it.
What can you do, Mr. Heimer, on the phase one, cost estimates, phase one, phase two, phase three, to include the water and the wastewater and everything else on that end?
No, we can certainly do that. It's not, and we can do that, again, I think our focus, maybe our big reason we maybe got off track here was, we were thinking the timing was such that we had to focus in on an issue and have an answer back within a reasonable amount of time, because when we looked at the overall system and not having much information, and if we worked with city staff to minimize costs, it could take a year to do this.
Well, we understand that, and I understand that, and we knew that.
Right.
We simply stated in the directive
Sure.
that area was the first priority, and then prioritize the rest.
Okay.
Is there a time frame only because of the Pecan Springs RV Park, because they brought it up as an issue? You know, because, I mean, it sounds to me that, I mean, obviously it was initiated by them, but I'm not saying that the city does not need it.
Sure.
Of course, the city does need it, but it was initiated by the Pecan Springs RV Park, but, you
What
know,
initiated that-
is there a rush because of the?
No, it was it was.
What
the
initiated
question-
it,
Go ahead.
Eric, and I'll say that, is when we went in there to get the report from Mr. Heimer about, when we asked the question about capacity, he said, my best estimate, my best guess. And I said, that's not good enough. My best guess doesn't work. We can't grow a city based on that.
It doesn't.
So, we have growth there. We have threatened all kinds of stuff going on out there. That's where we're growing. That's where this city is growing, is in this phase one. So let's make that area, that main that he described, as the first priority. Not because of the RV park, not because of any other piece. So that when the next business comes in and says, I want to build, we can answer the questions.
Yes, we can.
That was the purpose. And if that takes 3 months or 6 months or 3 years, we will do it right the first time. And that's my point.
I want to ask you something first, then you can go. Andy, how many employees does it take to help you?
Right now, I got 3. I would need 3 more in order for us to be looking at the water and the collection system.
That you would be taking 6 employees from off the street somewhere.
To do both,
Mhm.
if, in a timely manner, yes. With those 3,
So right now you're using how many, just to
3.
do the one, 3?
3 and a bucket operator?
No, the bucket operator is one of the
That's
3,
one of the 3.
Okay. Including yourself?
including myself.
You're one of the 3 or you're the
No,
4th?
I'm the 4th one.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, I'm gonna throw this out, okay? Can we remove those 3 employees to help him to speed this up and hire some maybe part-timers, temporary staff to fill the other shoes, like in the Parks Department?
No, ma'am.
Why
Again, you're going back to, I'm going back to the, to my question, there's a rush on here all of a sudden.
There is no rush.
No, but, you're gonna just.
Rush was perceived by Mr. Hyman.
I think
and I
that
know
was my
what-
perception, that we needed to get
Okay.
an answer within a reasonable amount of time, and I was thinking probably 3 or 4 months was the reasonable amount of time, because working with Andy and his staff, knowing his limitations on how many people we can put on it, if we expand this into water and throughout the entire city, it does become a much more involved process.
Mr. Heimer, there is no doubt that the city needs a water model and a sewer model,
No doubt.
period.
No doubt.
Okay? And it is clear we need to initiate that now, and it is clear to me, at the very least, that our costs would be reduced in doing it concurrently. At the same-
Which is fine, as long as he gets the staff, so we have to
Well,
accommodate.
but my point is not that we gotta rush it in 3 months. If it takes 3 years, Madam Mayor, I'm okay with that.
That's the
So
deal.
we have a timeline in some areas that can do it. And if that 3-year model works with the city and works with the budget and works with Mr. Heimer, great. Okay, the directive to the city manager did not have a timeline.
Well, the directive to the city manager was to bring something today.
Yeah, to
That's
bring
what-
us today. To bring us today on the staff.
That's why he's in a rush, well, I have to get you something.
Well, if I can expand the timeline,
Yes.
then I can use the
I
staff.
commend you
Yes.
for doing that.
If I can expand it, I can use the staff. But if it's a short timeline,
There is no timeline, there is no time cap on this. So as such, and for time's sake of the other things that are on the agenda, I make a motion to table this contract till the next meeting, or when he can come back to us with a different proposal.
We'll continue the work that we're doing up to that point
But
without.
I'm
Getting
not
forward.
through with this, because I still have questions. Okay, you yourself said, okay, and we all in this room know that the growth is going north. If we're not prepared to answer these developers wanting to come in, they're gonna say goodbye Floresville and keep on going like they have been, because we are not ready to help them. We're seeing that with home developers trying to come in. So I'm not saying I want this done tomorrow, but to have it done in 3 years, I think that's horrible.
But I think
No,
that,
no,
I think the
I'm not
business
even-
that
I'm not-
wanna
I'm
come
not
over
even
here, they're
saying
gonna
that.
have to.
I'm not
also
saying
fork
3
the money
years.
out.
We'll be
We're not
done.
gonna be giving them.
Sooner
But
than
we have to be
that.
able to tell them that we can take on the capacity.
Here's I mean, yes, if we're ready for bigger businesses, that means more flush toilets, more water faucets,
We're gonna know we have it.
well, you're gonna overwork the sewer system, that's not even ready to handle the capacity.
We don't
I
know
don't
yet.
know the answer to
Oh,
that.
hold on, hold on, hold on,
Obviously
hold on a
that-
We're
minute.
going way down the road.
Hold on, hold on, hold on.
Let Andy speak
Hold
on
on.
this, we've talked about this one.
You have a small home.
The ultimate issue here is dollars. To
Okay.
do a complete water and sewer
I
model,
agree with
we're
you,
looking
doing it
about
at the same time.
$200,000. We don't have that much,
It's $100,000 number.
Yeah.
Depending on how much.
we don't
involved
have
we
that money in the budget for this year, and I doubt that we're gonna have the money in the budget for next year. So there is no way possible that we could even look to having this completed in the next 2 years. What I'm asking for is for the engineers and for city staff and the city manager's office to come back to this council with a plan that will answer the mail on a complete water model and a complete sewer model within the budgetary constraints that we have. And that may take 3 years. I'm sorry, previous administrations didn't do this.
Exactly.
That's why we've got maps that date back to 1975. So it is incumbent upon this council and future councils to put it in place. I don't know what the time frame is,
So
and
do
I
we-
don't know when we're gonna have $200,000.
So do we stop construction because we don't have definite answers?
No, I'm not saying stop construction.
If you
What I'm
don't
s-
have the answers, why are you gonna continue building?
Exactly. That's what
Okay.
I'm saying.
Let's talk about the collection system going into the wastewater treatment plant. Right now, the collection system is
Apples
good,
and oranges, Eric.
okay?
We
Right
gotta
now,
listen too.
right now, this year alone, from January of 2013 to April of 2013, we're averaging 550,000 gallons per day at the wastewater treatment plant. That's a 60%. The problems that we're having at the plant are mechanical. The process is working so far. We need to have a plan when we hit 75%.
For 3 years, huh?
And when we hit 85%,
Or 3 months.
then we better be under construction. But here was the issue that I think has stirred a lot of things up. In 2006, we had a very rainy season. We had a plan put in place that estimated 3.5 growth from there to now, putting us at 8,000 population. We're at 6,400. If we would take the 8,000 population, that would put us at 800,000 gallons per day through the wastewater treatment plant. We couldn't handle it. But going back, I did a little study. We've only grown 1.1%, 1.2% since then. That's why we're at 600,000, at 500,000. Take the 6,400 people that live here. If I take the rule of thumb, 100 gallons per day, as the state of Texas says, we're at 640,000.
But are you including all of the, that's residents? you know?
No,
You're-
that's
are you
business,
including-
everybody.
Are you including all of the hotel motels? that-
Everything that we got right now.
Well, part of the water and the sewer model that is gonna help us, as is the land use plan, is going to address this issue. Where is the growth? Where do we improve our lives? And the same question that I asked, when we gave the city manager the directive to do this, do we know, okay, based on where the growth is going in the city, we don't even know where it's projected, but the land use plan will answer that. Do we know from our capacities if the expansion of the existing plant should be the priority, or would a smaller plant that doesn't require the lift stations that, where the growth is going, is that more cost effective? But the very, very first step in that is a water and sewer model. And I'm not discounting the sewer plant, and I'm certainly not proposing an ordinance that says, let's stop growth. What I am proposing is a complete plan, that we don't half-step this plan, that we have the maps, that we have the models, and that we can answer the questions of capacity, so that when we do need to expand our water plant, we can do it not by best guess, but by good engineering numbers. So that when it comes time to drill another well, we can answer the question not by best guess, but by good engineering numbers.
So when it comes time to answer the question, do we have the capacity to support an 800-room hotel or apartment complex? We're not doing it by best guess. We're doing it by good engineering numbers. If we had the money today, I would say, Mr. Heimer, do it, give it to us in 90 days. But we don't have the money today to do it all. We have $50,000 that was put into this year's budget for the water and sewer model. Okay, that's what we have this fiscal year. Okay, can we do a good phase one of a 2 or 3 phase project? Probably a 4-phase project. But let's put the entire project in front of this council to say it's gonna take this long, this is how much it's gonna cost, and do that. I'm not saying or in any way suggesting that the city should stop the work that it's currently doing. I'm suggesting that this contract doesn't answer all of the mail that we need to be answering, and it is incumbent upon us as the elected officials of this city to not half-step this, to give the city manager, to give the city staff the tools that they need to do their jobs. And so that as we look at the future land use plan, as we begin to look at zoning ordinances, as we begin to embrace the growth of this city, that we've done it right. That's all I am proposing in my motion to table the approval of this contract.
A second.
Okay, we have two people that want to make a comment. Lou?
Well, his motion is a preferential motion that can be discussed. And I'm gonna honor the Roberts rules. If you make a motion to table, I can't talk.
Does that apply?
I'll
to the
withdraw my
second also?
motion so you can give the,
All right. Here's my two thoughts. I do think at the last meeting, our focus was kind of on wastewater, and I'm real happy that you
Put together.
made the water and sewer co-equal. Okay, because I do think we were kind of one-sided last time. Okay? Number two, I do think we do need to address the fiscal side of what you're talking about. And I would suggest, based on some experience I've had for about 40 years, that we need to look at the revenue stream that we're gonna expect to come from new connections.